joining us. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar today. We'll just give it another minute for all the attendees to join in, and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's get started with today's webinar. Thank you once again for joining us this morning. Now, did you know that the Port of Los Angeles, one of the busiest in the world, handles about 9 million containers a year? Now imagine if every single container was misplaced, delayed, or lost in chaos. That's what happens when marketing operations are left unmanaged. Content gets delayed, lost in shuffle, or even fails to reach its destination, causing costly disruptions. In today's fast-paced digital world, businesses just cannot afford this kind of chaos. Welcome everyone to today's webinar on building a scalable content supply chain for growing businesses. Now, research has shown that optimizing and managing the content supply chain, businesses can reduce duplication of efforts, eliminate inefficiencies, and lower content production costs by about 30%. Today, we'll show you how to turn your marketing operations from a chaotic port into a streamlined, scalable content supply chain that drives real growth. The future of your business depends on this. I'm Hemant Ramnani, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at DLUX TECH, and it's a pleasure to be hosting today's webinar. Over the last 24 years, I've had the opportunity to drive transformative results in sales and marketing across the globe, and in companies like Adobe, Unifor, and Siebert. My passion lies in building high-performance sales teams and crafting strategies that drive revenue growth. At DLUX TECH, I not only focus on delivering results, but I also focus on inspiring growth and innovation in the fast-paced marketing landscape. It's my mission to help our clients streamline their content supply chain and enhance their marketing operational efficiency. I'm excited to be here today and share the strategies that can transform your content and marketing operations. Joining me today are two of our top experts, Sean Campbell, our Principal Solutions Consultant, and Nick Mesker, our Senior Martech Consultant. Together, we bring decades of experience in optimizing content and marketing operations across various industries. Now, before we dive into today's content, let me provide a brief overview of DLUX TECH. At DLUX, we are more than just your technology partners. We offer Martech advisory services, including strategic advisory, tech road mapping, process redesign and optimization, and change management. We have strong partnerships with Adobe, Aprimo, Salesforce, Dataiku, among other expanding partnerships. Our experts in implementing and optimizing digital asset management systems, work management systems, and marketing platforms help us drive business growth and improve efficiency. What are we covering today? Well, we'll begin by exploring what a content supply chain is and why it's so important for your business. This foundational understanding will help set the stage for everything we'll cover today. Next, we'll dive into the stages of the content supply chain: planning and ideation, content creation, approvals, management and distribution, and finally performance, and see how to streamline each one for maximum efficiency. We'll also tackle some of the common challenges that content and marketing teams face, like managing complexity and ensuring consistency, and discuss practical ways to overcome these obstacles. We'll then look at strategies for integrating various systems and optimizing processes to ensure a seamless content flow. Now, this is crucial for businesses juggling multiple tools and platforms, helping to reduce inefficiencies and improve collaboration. As your business grows, your content operations need to keep at pace. We'll discuss how to prepare your content supply chain for scalability and future-proof it against evolving needs. We'll also finish with a Q&A, so please feel free to jot down any questions as we go along. Let's get started. As marketers and business leaders, you are under constant pressure to deliver measurable business value, optimize marketing spend, and create exceptional customer experiences. But when you look at the reality of your day-to-day operations, it often feels like navigating through a tangled web of disconnected systems and processes, much like the image on the slide. Now, this illustration represents what many of you deal with daily: a chaotic blend of tools, platforms, and workflows spanning marketing, creative, IT, and many other teams. The complexity leads to numerous challenges, each impacting your ability to work efficiently and effectively. First, there's a low adherence to brand standards. When teams operate in silos, maintaining consistent messaging and brand identity across multiple channels becomes a real struggle. Second, you face time-consuming reviews and approvals. A lack of streamlined processes means content gets stuck in endless feedback loops, delaying campaigns, making it harder to respond quicker to marketing needs. Then the risk of regulatory and legal compliance looms large. Without a clear and centralized process, ensuring that all content meets necessary legal standards can become a compliance nightmare. And finally, there's the inability to find and reuse assets effectively. With assets scattered across various drives, platforms, and departments, teams waste valuable time searching for content that may already exist but is impossible to locate. According to an Adobe study, a staggering 76% of companies struggle with easily finding and sorting assets, and 50% of them are created but never used. Now, these challenges aren't just frustrating, they directly impact the bottom line and hinder your ability to deliver the kind of customer experiences that drive growth and loyalty. The key is finding ways to streamline this chaos into a more manageable, efficient process that supports your business goals rather than it getting in the way. Now, we've already touched on how the Port of Los Angeles, one of the busiest in the world, handles millions of containers each year. Just like the port that ensures goods flow from arrival to final delivery, your content supply chain needs to move ideas, assets, and approvals seamlessly through each stage. Without streamlined processes, you end up with delays, inconsistencies, and missed opportunities, much like a port in disarray. The goal is to transform complexity into smooth, scalable operations, just like the orderly movement of goods through a busy, well-managed port. Now, my colleague Sean Campbell will walk us through a deeper dive into how we can achieve this, exploring the content supply chain from the DLUX perspective, and obviously showing you how to bring order to your content operations. Sean has decades of experience working in various aspects of the tech industry, from training to solution consulting. Most recently, And prior to joining DLUX, he worked at Salesforce as a solution engineer in the core enterprise team in Australia. Before that, Sean spent over a decade while a leading marketing, operations, and digital asset management software provider, Aprimo, across the APJ region. He also pursued his passion for developing others while leading the learning and development team at Six Senses Sports Spas Group. Sean is also very enthusiastic about AI, having recently written the book AI Success Blueprint, an essential guide for business leaders, while upskilling himself in the AI space. His motto is, "It's not always about tech," as he frequently reminds others that technology doesn't solve all problems. It takes the people, processes, and technology working together for a full solution. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Hemant. Appreciate it. So each stage of your content supply chain, from planning and ideation to managing content and its distribution and performance, it all has to function smoothly. And that's to ensure that your content reaches its audience effectively and on time. So at its core, it's really about ensuring you have the right processes, the people, and the technology in place to create, manage, and distribute your content in a seamless way. So we've broken it down here. This is our deluxe perspective across these 5 stages. And all of these stages are essential to overall success. So first, you have planning and ideation. So using our port example, it's just like the movement of goods to avoid congestion. It's planning that out. It involves having the right content and making sure it's aligned to your business objectives. Now, during content creation, here the ideas are transformed into tangible digital assets. And that's the content that is written, designed, and produced. It's kind of like loading the ships with goods ready for transport. And then, of course, comes content approvals. So once your content's created, it has to go through the required approvals, and that's usually going to involve multiple stakeholders, including legal or compliance, and the brand and marketing teams. And that's absolutely a vital step to ensure that the quality of the content and the alignment to your brand messaging. Next comes content management and distribution, and that's managing those prized creative assets that you've developed across multiple campaigns, saving you time and money as your content needs scale. It's also the delivery of the content to the various downstream channels like social media, email, and websites, ensuring it reaches the right audience in the right channel and at the right time. So when you're thinking about content performance, you're thinking about things like, are people engaging with the content? Is it really driving the desired actions that you're trying to achieve? Now, we understand all of you on the call may be at different stages in your content supply chain journey. So some of you might just be starting out and you're building that foundation, while others might be looking to optimize and scale your existing processes, or potentially unravel that spaghetti of systems like in the image before that we tend to often see in the typical Martech stacks. To put a little bit of this into perspective, I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Nick. He's going to share his experience working with one of Australia's biggest brands. Now, Nick brings over 15 years experience working across marketing operations, communications, campaign delivery, and change management roles. And Nick has worked in organizations of various sizes, and this includes startups to mid-sized companies, as well as large, well-known multinational enterprises. And he's always helped them to optimize ways of working and to effectively manage traffic, capacity, and change. He's been proficient in both waterfall project and agile delivery practices, and his expertise spans a broad range of industries from supermarkets to finance, retail, telecom, legal services, and digital out-of-home advertising. So I'll pass it over to you, Nick, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So I'm not going to lie to anybody here. Given my history in working in marketing operations roles, I get really excited about a robust content supply chain. It's something I'm very passionate about. And so if you're wondering why you're seeing a bunch of plastic bags on the screen right now, I actually worked in a marketing team in the past, and we were presented with quite a unique challenge. Some of you may have been aware of governmental changes. We had this in Australia where they opted for the removal of single-use plastic bags from stores. And we needed to advise these changes to customers swiftly because they saw it as quite a negative impact. Luckily, we had a real robust content supply chain at the time. So we were able to move at pace from the initial planning stages through creative development. We were able to move through the multiple rounds of stakeholder approval, all the way to going live with messaging and market. And the most critical part was ensuring that this creative was aligned across all of our owned and earned channels, and the approvals were timely yet consolidated, given the amount of eyes that were going to be across the messaging. This streamlined approach also ensured that we were able to maintain consistency across multiple brands at that time. And it really led to a very successful launch for us. I think when we think about it, the strength of a successful content supply chain really lies in your ability to align your teams and reduce those bottlenecks, and ensuring that your messaging is consistent across all of your channels. So if we take a moment to reflect on your current processes, think about this. Do you currently have a defined content supply chain? Are you facing delays, or what are your existing bottlenecks? Do you find that you're using tools that are disconnected from each other? Or are your tools primarily email and spreadsheets, and that's what you're using to collaborate across your teams? Think on that as we sort of deep dive in more detail around the stages of the content supply chain. And I want to start by looking at stage one, which is content planning and ideation. Now, effective content planning and ideation really begins with that core understanding of your business objectives. I mean, it's really essential to understand your content initiatives and how they align with your broader business goals before you get deep into the planning and ideation. So this alignment kind of acts as the guiding star in a way. It helps you prioritize your ideas that are going to have the most significant impact when aligned to those business goals. So for instance, think about, before brainstorming content ideas, you really want to revisit the company's key objectives. Maybe it's brand awareness or lead generation, or maybe it's customer retention. Think about that example of the port that we used earlier. So just as a ship leaves the port, it needs a clear destination that it's going to. In the same way, your content needs to be guided with that well-defined strategy. This stage it's foundational. It's the groundwork that leads to all of the subsequent stages in that content supply chain. And it really ensures that the content serves a purpose. And again, it goes back to contribute to those overall objectives that you've got. Look, often when we speak with our customers, we'll often hear about how they'll use like a centralized project management platform and how that allows their teams to contribute ideas in a structured format during that planning phase. And the best part about this is it reduces time spent in unproductive meetings that just go round and round. And I think we can all agree, we'd all love less meetings. Let's take a moment to look at some of the key elements of the planning and ideation phase, because I think this is a really, really important part of this actual stage. So think about first your strategic development. So this is where it all begins. This is the overall planning and goal setting for your content. So asking yourself things like, what are we hoping to achieve? What are the key metrics? And what do we feel like success looks like to us? Then you start getting deeper. So capacity planning. Who's going to be doing the work? Do we have anyone to do the work? Has our team got the bandwidth to actually handle what our grand idea is? And then on top of that, budget. How much are we looking to spend? Do we have the money to spend? And what areas are we going to focus our spend on? Then you get to move into things like your overall campaign plan. So what's the message that you want to convey? Who's your target audience going to be? And what are those key themes and topics that you want to cover? And it's about the creative ideation, or maybe it's reuse. So is this as large as a whole new brand lockup? Or is it a simple kind of rinse and repeat of an existing creative that really only requires maybe some cosmetic touch-ups before it goes to market? And then there's the briefs, and briefs are so important because this is the time when you're distilling that strategy from that strategic thought all the way to your copywriters and your designers. So these briefs need to be tight. They need to include things like your target audiences, your key messages, the tone that you want to speak to, and most importantly, your style guidelines as well. When I think more about the planning phase, I think about what can happen when failing to plan leads to failure. So think about what happened on April 23rd, 1985. If you don't know what date that was, that's okay. That was the launch of Coca-Cola's New Coke initiative, which famously led to one of the biggest consumer backlashes of all time. And you should check it out online. It's a hilarious story. And even Coke, if you go to their website, mention it as the most memorable marketing blunder ever. It was a ridiculous rebrand. Well, think about American Airlines when they infamously brought in a thing called AirPass. And again, this is a great story if you haven't heard about it before. Effectively, what they wanted to do was they offered unlimited first-class tickets for customers if they paid $250,000. And this ended up being one of the most poorly planned marketing decisions in all of airline history. Because while they intended for wealthy, occasional travelers, that's not what happened. Instead, it totally backfired with people buying passes and flying hundreds of hours annually, racking up massive costs for the company. And then it got worse because American Airlines tried to revoke some of the passes because they were saying, oh, well, our customers are misusing the purpose of the pass, which then led to lawsuits and reputational damage for the company. I was actually working with one of Australia's biggest brands previously, and we had learned about competitor activity that was coming through the grapevine of what could be a major campaign launch that sounded like it had the potential to cause some massive revenue shortfall for us. However, at the time, our commercial and marketing teams weren't properly aligned on the right strategy. And we really didn't even have the right platform for proper planning and alignment at that time. And wouldn't you know it, our competitor went to market with a much more lucrative offer than we had. And simply put, they absolutely mopped the floor with us. In reflection, if we would have had the right processes and systems to support us at the time, we would have been able to pivot with enough time to have a much better response to market. Proactive, not reactive. So in your own experience, think about this. How much importance do you put in the planning and ideation stage? Are you experiencing any current pitfalls or pain points in that stage? Or do you feel like sometimes you're just running at 1,000 miles an hour and it almost feels like you're building the plane after it's already taken off? Let's think about that, and we'll move on to stage 2, which is the content creation stage. Content creation is great. This is where your ideas and plans are brought to life, transforming these strategic concepts into tangible assets. And efficient workflow management is absolutely critical in keeping you on track during this stage. You really should be using a work management tool, something similar to Adobe Workfront that can help you set clear deadlines and monitor your progress as you go through this content creation production. Some organizations may opt to go with a basic collaboration tool, and not naming any names, but I'm sure you've seen some of these in market. They're widely accessible and they're often free. And yeah, they might help with team communication and simple file sharing, but let's be honest, these really fall short when it comes to addressing the needs of a growing business. And I think the other big thing that's happening in content creation at the moment is, and let's not ignore the elephant in the room, generative AI. It's everywhere at the moment. When it comes to content creation, Gen AI can absolutely significantly speed up the process. It's a great tool to enhance creativity. But if teams are utilizing unauthorized Gen AI tools, that can actually present several risks to your businesses. Think about this, if your business doesn't know who these Gen AI companies are, you don't know how your data is being captured. You also don't know if these providers are going to exist in the next couple of years. Not to mention, think about the potential legal and security issues surrounding this, and disruptions if these companies just suddenly shut down and suddenly your content creation tools are no longer available. And then if you think about it, if your AI tools are, these unsanctioned Gen AI tools, maybe they're leveraging copyrighted material that is coming from anywhere out there in the internet. If that's happening, that can open up your company to massive legal issues. And to combat this, recently we've seen some leading software vendors actually offering indemnity as part of their solutions. And I think that's something that actually highlights the importance of using a trusted Gen AI tool over an unsanctioned platform. After that, the next stage we really want to look at in detail, stage 3, which is content approvals. And look, in my experience, in marketing teams, this is really where the rubber hits the road. Now, there's 2 types of marketing teams that go through the content approval process, and you can see them on the screen right now. There's the marketing team on the left. They are dealing with the stress of lengthy review cycles and round in review hell. And then there's the team on the right, and they have just gotten everything approved for their campaign, and they are loving life. They're literally making it rain with documents in that room. But this is the thing is, during the content approval stage, this is often where the biggest bottlenecks can occur with those lengthy review cycles that I talked about. These can cause massive delays in getting your content to market as it just goes round and round in review hell. But there are ways to, avoid unnecessary delays. And the approval process, if you build a strong approval process, you can build one that's streamlined, it's transparent, and it's definitely efficient. And that's absolutely what you want out of this process. Often the first step in streamlining your approvals is establishing clear guidelines and figuring out your roles and responsibilities within your team. Teams need a robust approval process as part of that because you need to know your RACI. Who's responsible? Who's going to be accountable? Are there consults? And who just needs to be informed? If you don't have that clear RACI, it's going to be incredibly difficult in making sure that the right people are getting to the right approvals at the right time. Otherwise, critical approvals can get missed. Or, as I've experienced in the past, a critical approver may come back from leave, find out they were missed from a review, and then request that we go back and rework that work. Going back through approval gates is never something that you want to have to do. So once you've got clear guidelines in place and you've got a robust approval RACI, I think the next step would be to look at implementing, automated workflows, because this really allows you to sort of route your content to the appropriate stakeholders. You want it to get to the right people at the right time in a timely manner for review and approval. So when you've got tools, like Adobe Workfront or similar project management platforms, these can be configured to automatically notify reviewers. You can set approval deadlines, which are really critical. And you're also able to track that approval status in real time to figure out, hey, who are we still waiting on approval from? Now, alongside automated workflows, having a single source of truth is also incredibly important, because you want all of that feedback to be captured in that one consolidated place, because this is going to keep everybody aligned on where you're at, and it's really going to help reduce the instances of rework. This can often be achieved through, using tools that feature things like inline commenting and version tracking. you want to be able to ensure that every piece of content is reviewed with clarity at the right time by the right people. So what kind of features would we want in a centralized feedback system? Obviously, and I feel like this one's a bit of a no-brainer, you want real-time collaboration. You want to be working on it at the same time because this will absolutely reduce delays. As I mentioned earlier, annotations across all different media types is going to be critical because you want to see all of that consolidated feedback. Then you're definitely going to want version control and tracking. This helps you maintain a really clear audit trail. And if you think about the importance of companies who are in sort of highly regulated industries, that audit trail is critical. You're also going to, of course, want, automated notifications and alerts. You want to be able to keep everybody informed on any important updates to that process. And lastly, reporting and analytics, specifically around approval timelines, is critical because you can use this to help identify and track where are those roadblocks in our process. When I worked in a previous marketing team who honestly did not have a centralized approval system, I witnessed one of the biggest potential brand disasters of my entire career. And this is absolutely a true story. So during a product photo shoot that we had, someone from the production team brought a product to the shoot that was from one of our competitors. We don't know how or why they did it, but they did. Not only did they bring it to the shoot, they actually put it on the table in the shot and left it there by accident. And I guess you can imagine what happened next. That ended up in the shot. So not only was that already an issue, but then that photo went through several rounds of approval. And you'd think, okay, that's where it's going to be captured. Someone's going to yell out, hey, that's not actually a product that we're selling. But because we didn't have that centralized approval system in place, we were missing key approvals from the commercial team who weren't there to say, that's not one of ours. And the most ridiculous thing happened. That image went to print and landed in a national campaign. The worst possible thing that can happen is us promoting a competitor's product in a national campaign. And I'm not going to lie, several people came very close to losing their jobs over this one careless error. And that's an error that could have been easily corrected if we had have had a centralized approval system in place. Such an easy fix. So as you consider your own content approval processes, consider where you experience the most delays. Do you lack those clear guidelines? Have you got a RACI? Do you have do you lack a clear approvals process currently? Or are you maybe completing your reviews and approvals through multiple different platforms over here and there? Let's think on that. I'm going to throw it back to Sean, who's going to take us through the next stage, which is content management and distribution. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Nick. That's a good story. Thanks. Scary, but quite interesting story there. So yes, after your content has been approved, the next step is you're going to want to ensure it's organized and ready for your deployment. In this stage, the focus is really on storing, managing, and delivering the content. So having like a well-organized and managed digital asset management system is going to do more than just store your digital content. What it's going to do is going to make it easier for you to find and reuse assets, allowing you to leverage existing content across multiple campaigns. And these on screen are just two of the examples, two that are not the right dams we're talking about, but the other two are examples of the user experience from a few of the DAM partners that we work very closely with, Adobe and Aprimo. Now think back to our port example we started the session with. Just like a port, you have to have a well-organized warehouse to be able to find and dispatch goods. Your content needs to be categorized in a way that makes it easily accessible for both the humans and the systems that are required to deliver your content to the various marketing channels. And I have a story too, Nick. So I remember years ago, I was working at a marketing operations platform company in the US. And this was long before the advent of drones and these sophisticated digital asset management systems that we're talking about today. And it was with the marketing team of a major U.S. enterprise. I heard they had hired a production crew and a helicopter to basically fly over New York City, capturing the aerial footage and images as well. And you can imagine this is a very expensive photo shoot for a marketing campaign. And years later, they wanted to reuse that footage, obviously, because it was quite powerful imagery. And unfortunately, it was nowhere to be found. And they actually did that multiple times. So they actually ended up reshooting the same footage or very similar footage 5 times. And you think, wow, that's crazy. How could that happen? Well, they say, well, actually, there's different teams, different marketing departments. This is a large business with, teams in different parts of the world, different states. So you can imagine they're just keep reshooting the exact same thing. And the enormous unnecessary cost that comes out of this is quite surprising. But, if they had a centralized dam system in place, they would have been able to find and reuse that content, and that would have been very effortless, saving them a lot of time and money. But having a dam is really only just one piece of the puzzle. To truly optimize how you manage and distribute your content, it's crucial that your dam is integrated with other systems too. So such as like the downstream systems like content management, like CMSs, just Adobe Experience Manager sites is an example of one. There are others as well. And while the dam basically centralizes and manages your digital assets, the CMS is going to ensure the assets are reaching the right digital channels, like the websites, the apps, and more. And that's going to enable you to deliver those personalized digital experiences to your customers. It's sort of like ensuring the product gets placed on the store shelves, like right when the customers are looking for it. And if you think about all the planning, the work, the approvals things go through, the last thing you want to do is leave it, not getting all the way to your customers and reaching the final audience. So there are automated distribution tools that don't have to always, allows you not to rely completely on the humans to take care of that. And this allows you to streamline the process, ensuring your content is published across all the platforms with minimal manual effort. So if you're thinking about content management and distribution and your practices and the systems you have in place today, ask yourself, do you have a central system that makes it easy to find and reuse assets? Do you think there's any opportunities there to automate your content distribution rather than like manually moving files and then having some human person to, have to set it up in another system? Does your DAM, if you have one already, or something like a DAM or something that is working with all the files, does it integrate seamlessly with all the necessary downstream systems? And does your current solution enable you to personalize that content in real time to the various audiences? So let's discuss some of the features that you should be looking for in a DAM if you're looking for one. And a DAM is definitely a key component of a scalable content supply chain. So here are some of the key features of the DAM, the key capabilities. A DAM can really be a game changer for you in how you handle your digital assets, especially when you're a larger company and you're looking for things to manage things in a central location, which allow you to manage, control, and distribute the assets across teams in various regions, various states, and bring in all the content under one roof. You should find things like AI-powered innovations, like predictive metadata, like things like AI tagging that are going to enhance the searchability and the findability of your assets. And of course, you have to have things like version control and access permissions to ensure you have the right people and only the right people for certain assets that they can access and update those things. You'll have the full capability to control who sees what. And maintain that security across various versions or certain renditions. You should also look for DAMs that have automated workflows. So that can definitely help streamline tasks, providing you with visibility and accountability throughout the entire content lifecycle. These automated workflows can trigger integrations with other systems, like CRMs or other marketing platforms or even other systems, reducing manual work and speeding up processes. Now, top tier DAMs that we work with should also support diverse formats, from traditional media to 3D to VR to AR, and of course be flexible enough to be configured to handle whatever the format that comes next. Auto resizing and content distribution is also key, because that makes it easy to adjust and distribute content in modular ways across different platforms. And that's going to help you ensure your assets are always appearing in the right format. Of course, you're going to want to know how your asset is performing, so reporting and insights is also very important, helping you make data-driven decisions. Integration and extendability are absolutely essential as well. As I mentioned, you want to integrate your DAM seamlessly with your existing tech stack and facilitate the smooth flow of data and content to whatever system that needs it. And finally, as you're scaling your business, as you're growing, there's inevitably going to be more volume of assets and users. So you want to have a system that's scalable so you can continue to do business without missing a beat. And together, all of these features make a DAM an invaluable part of your content supply chain. So let's move on to the last stage, and that's the last stage of the content supply chain framework, and that's the content performance. So content performance is more than just views and clicks. It's really about measuring how well the content resonates with your audience. Is it driving certain actions that you're looking for them to take? And is it supporting the overall business goals that you started off in the planning phase? So again, back to our port example that we started off, it's just like kind of tracking the shipment, as it makes its way through the final destination. Just like in the same way, you need to track your content journey to see if it's actually delivering the results that you expected at the planning phase. So to do this effectively, you have to have the right analytic tools in place, and that's crucial. Now, there are things like Adobe Suite, right? Adobe, again, has Adobe Assets, Adobe Sites, and Adobe Analytics, and that's going to take content performance to the absolute next level. So Adobe Assets helps you manage and track the digital assets, while the sites, Adobe Sites, ensures your content looks great on the different web platforms. And Adobe Analytics then adds the real-time insights in there, tracking user interactions and offering detailed reports on engagement, conversions, and other KPIs. And having this kind of integrated approach is going to let you see exactly how your content is performing and where you need to make any changes. There are other platforms as well that we work with. Aprimo is another partner. They have acquired recently a company called Personify, and that's going to bring a lot of additional value to content performance tracking as well. And so what Aprimo DAM does is it provides insights into which assets are working hardest for you. It's helping you to make smarter decisions around content reuse and also helping you to reduce the duplication of efforts when you're looking and trying to find assets or reuse assets. Personify specifically is using AI to analyze customer behavior on the site, on your website, providing real-time insights and personalized content recommendations that can help you to drive higher engagement. So it's going to help you understand not just what content is being viewed, but it's also going to show you how the different audiences are interacting with it. And when you see certain types of content that's like performing well, you can kind of double down on those formats. And if you see there's other content that's not quite resonating the way you would hope it would, you can quickly identify the problem. So whether that's in the messaging, the format, or the timing, or the placement, and then you can make any necessary adjustments as needed. So you can think of like content analytics is like the final piece putting all of this content supply chain framework together. It's really the final feedback loop that's going to inform every other stage, from the planning, creation, from the approval and the management of your assets to the distribution of the assets. So it's really making sure that like all the decisions you made along the process have been data driven, that are grounded in actual results, not just people think it's a good idea, and aligned with your business objectives. So as you're thinking through your content performance and the strategy around it, please consider these key questions. So number one, are you effectively using data to guide your content decisions? Think about, like, do you have a structured process for regularly reviewing your content performance metrics? Do you have the right technology stack that's going to help you support this entire content supply chain framework and the content analytics that's going to tell you, is your content actually being successful? The aim for this is really to close the loop on the content supply chain and to drive the measurable business value that you're looking for. And we believe with the right tools and with a focus on data-driven decisions, your content's not just going to reach your audience, but it's also going to make a really impact, make a real impact. So to kind of sum up what we've seen so far, we've talked about this content supply chain framework and this content journey from planning and ideation to creation to approvals to the management and distribution of your assets and onwards to performance tracking. So to summarize, content planning and ideation, that's the first phase, which is going to basically ensure you're aligning your strategy to business goals, what Nick talked about, how important that is. Content creation, right? A lot of things are happening in that space, especially around generative AI. And content creation is about bringing those ideas to life while you still want to balance efficiency and accountability with the creativity aspect. So we're not saying we're trying to stifle creativity. In fact, we're trying to free up people's time from the administration of, chasing down where things are at, who's creating it, is it on schedule? We're trying to remove a lot of that administrative work and free up your designers and people like that who are creative to do the best work they can. And then content approvals. Nick talked about, how ensuring your content is compliant, consistent, and ready to go live is key. And you heard the story from Nick about, what can go wrong when you don't have a centralized approval system. Content management and distribution is about keeping that content organized. You've heard me talk about, the leading dams and what the kind of features are that you should look for in a dam. You want to ensure your content's organized in a way that can be it can be reused whenever it's needed, instead of having to reshoot something, 5 times just because you can't find it. And you also make sure that you have a dam that's, sophisticated enough that it can automate the delivery of those assets to the right channels, as well as content performance being the last stage. And that's, of course, one of the most important parts is being able to measure impact of your content. Is it resonating with your audience? And allows you to inform kind of a continuous improvement cycle that can then feed back into the content planning and ideation, giving you that full loop and the insights you need to make adjustments where you have to. So adopting this kind of framework we talked about today has really clear advantages, but it's not really going to happen by accident. It's a framework. You have to kind of dive in and see what are the actions you can take, how do you get there. So what I want to do is share with you a few best practices to help you scale and optimize your content supply chain. So let's talk about some best practices here. First, we often see that, the most important thing is not technical. It's actually, as it goes back to what I said, it's about people, process, and technology. So from a people side, leadership is absolutely essential for any major initiative. And for those leaders on the call, I know this is probably something that seems obvious, but sometimes it's often overlooked and missed. And especially when you're spanning across multiple teams, leadership is especially important. Executive sponsors can help to align the priorities, remove roadblocks, and to keep just basically the momentum and the energy high around the initiative. So even without, that support, even with support, even the best strategies can stall without their support. And I've seen many digital transformations fail because there is a lack of strong executive leadership and support around an idea. And that kind of ends up resulting in poor software adoption and wasted money and resources. So you really have to think through before you even select the tech. Do you have stakeholder alignment? Is the leader showing where we're headed with this transformation? Now, secondly, your Martech stack, that's got to directly support your broader business goals. You've got to have that clear strategy that's going to connect the content efforts to key objectives, whether that's driving revenue or boosting engagement or enhancing customer retention. And you're going to want to look at your tech stack and decide, am I trying to, stitch together all these things? Some of them are unsanctioned tools that, some people just are using with a credit card, or are these, legacy tools that kind of have lost, are a bit outdated now, and they're not taking advantage of the newest innovations. And you're going to want to have to, avoid a tangle of like kind of disconnected tools and align your Martech investments, with your content strategy. Also, streamline workflows. This is where a lot of organizations I've seen struggle. You're going to want to start by mapping out the current workflows. We do a lot of, advising with companies where we work with them and figure out their process, so we can identify any efficiencies and bottleneck, and avoid slowing down the content delivery. So we work with companies, and it says like asking them, are there manual steps that can be automated? Well, how do you know? People all have a different perspective along that content journey. So we have to go in there and kind of, speak to people and understand their perspective on like what works, what doesn't. Are there steps that add no value? Are there opportunities to use AI to speed up some of the content management and distribution part of it? And we work with you to prioritize the areas that need immediate attention, and then introduce automation where it makes sense to free up your team again from the administrative and push them towards the more high value tasks. Like stakeholder alignment, as I mentioned with the leadership part, is very crucial. So when you have marketing, IT, and business teams all aligned, you can eliminate silos, you can reduce the duplicated efforts, and you can seize the opportunities faster. So having things like regular check-ins, having a shared platform to work with, and having open communication is really key to having everyone on the same page. Whether you need to basically enable your teams to respond quickly to, whatever the changing market conditions are. Just like, pivoting if you need to a new campaign to react to a customer, a competitive customer campaign. And of course, you're going to want to invest in scalable technology. Again, Nick had mentioned about how, there's a lot of free tools out there that you can just get online, use them for a while, or swipe a credit card. But often those tools are not scalable, and your tech stack needs to grow with your business. So you really have to regularly audit to ensure your tools are meeting your needs and can scale as fast as you can. The last thing you want to do is outgrow the systems that you have and get bogged down with outdated technology that doesn't really talk to each other. And finally, you want to have the team embrace data-driven decision-making. So data should guide every decision, whether it's content creation to performance assessment. You want to continuously gather, analyze, and act on your data to stay agile. And this doesn't mean you have to be agile, the big agile, but you have to look at what your ways of working and encourage the teams to rely on real-time insights and make those informed decisions. And so we're here to help you. These are just some of the typical use cases that DLUX Tech can assist with. We can help you from strategic Martech advice to implementing enterprise work management, digital asset management systems, and other marketing solutions from leading vendors. Our Martech advisory can tailor content strategies to broaden your business goals, while our implementation teams can ensure you have the right digital platforms and automation tools in place. We also offer help if you're looking for the next, if you're going through vendor selection and you're looking at different technologies, we can help there. We can also help with integration of your systems if you have lots of different systems in place today. And as I mentioned, we can help you map your processes out to find those bottlenecks and optimize your processes. So going forward, you're working in a much more efficient way. And all of this is absolutely necessary if you're going to build out your own content supply chain, or try to re-optimize or look at the things that aren't working today in the way you're working. We also have training and change management support, which ensures your teams can adapt smoothly to new processes and position your business for ongoing growth. So on that note, I'm going to hand back to Hemant, and then we'll start to wrap up here.
So much, Sean. Wow, guys, this was excellent. Now that We've pretty much covered a lot today. I'd like to open this up for questions that everyone might have. We've kind of covered this morning. We've understood how the content supply chain works, how to establish an efficient process and integrate it with the right tools. Now, this is your chance to deep dive into any topic or ask for more specific insights related to your organization's challenges. Feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. I'll just give you guys a minute and we'll take those questions. We have one question come in. So Sean and Nick, either of you can take this up. How do you prioritize which content to automate in the approval process?
Do you want to take that one, Nick?
How do we prioritize? Sorry, what was that last part?
How do you prioritize what content to automate in the approval process?
How do you prioritize what content? Well, I think, definitely want to look at, prioritizing content for automation, where you've got, high volume, repetitive content that has clear guidelines. You can use tools like Workfront or similar tools that can help kind of streamlining these processes, to help routing that content to, the right people for review and tracking. But yeah, I think if you think about the more complex content that requires the most nuanced kind of reviews, that's where, that's the stuff that, you might be maintaining, a manual process or even a hybrid approach. So that can sort of be more effective.
I think
sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was done.
I was just going to chime in. Yeah, I think, when you're looking at kind of the approvals, again, things can be done manually, but when you talk about the large volumes in some companies, when they have so many content pieces going through this content supply chain, you definitely have to have some business logic set up in place. So you understand, in this case, it needs to go to this person, or maybe in another situation, it needs to go through 3 levels of approval. So I think when you're looking at systems or you're thinking about what's the type of content, those are kind of the process work you need to do. And like when Nick talked about the RACI, is really having that clear understanding of in this circumstance, we need, first person to review it, second approver, third approver. But if it's something less critical, maybe that's, a very simple approval process. So I think that's the kind of work you have to almost do up front. Obviously, implementing systems can help you have those discussions for sure. But I think, taking a step back for a second and say, we don't want to create unnecessary approval bottlenecks. But there are those things like, for example, in the story Nick told, that should have had a certain structure to go through to capture that kind of mistake. So I think it really comes down, I know the answer probably is not the best answer, but it depends. And I think that's where we have to have a conversation with you to understand, where are you at in terms of the definition of your approval rules, let's say, and we can work with you to kind of simplify that and map out your process.
So much, guys. There are a few more questions, so we'll kind of make it quick as much as we can kind of answer. So the other one is, how often should we conduct reviews and audits of our content supply chain?
I'm happy.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, look, regular and often, as much as you can, really. I think given pace or the pace of change that we find ourselves in, it's incredibly important to be, having that audit of your content supply chain regularly as your business continues to grow and scale and change. I would probably look at something like, even as often as a quarterly audit to, again, use those tools to identify bottlenecks or inefficiencies, getting that data and reporting out of your tools and then being able to reflect back on it and, that classic reflect and refine sort of cycle. I think that's a great way to, to just ensure that, you don't have these inefficiencies that have been grandfathered in, as your team has continued to change and evolve.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. And we have one more. How can organizations manage media inventory? What tools can be used?
I think it depends on what we're saying. What type of media are we talking about? Are we talking photos, videos, animations, illustrations, that sort of thing? But yeah, I think that a DAM, like I was mentioning, the DAM, like you want to look for a DAM that can control different types of formats. And depending on the use case, you know, you can configure it numerous ways. But yeah, those leading DAMs that we were talking about can handle pretty much every type of format, even custom formats. So I'm not sure. I think we'd have to get a little bit more detail around the question. But yeah, I mean, the digital asset management system is pretty much the solution to be the central hub for all of your assets.
Thanks, Sean. I think that's all the questions that we have for today. If you have further questions or if yours didn't get answered today, we'll sure be sending out a follow-up email after the webinar. Please kind of respond to that email and then we can take up those questions. Now, if you're looking for a chance to enhance your content supply chain or to drive better results, we'd love to help you and take that next step. In the follow-up email that I would be sending, I'll be sharing the presentation, the recording, as well as a link to book a 30 to 60 minute kind of a call or a chat with me and my team. And I encourage you to book that session with us to take this opportunity to dive deeper into the specific challenges that you are facing and the solutions that we can provide that can elevate your content operations. Now, I think we've learned a lot today from Nick and Sean. We understand how to kind of build a successful content supply chain for growing businesses, streamline processes, integrate the right tools, and build a content supply chain that actually supports your growth. So once again, Sean and Nick, thank you so much for doing this and hosting the webinar for us this morning. And everyone on the call, thank you guys for your time, and we'll see you soon on the next webinar. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.